banking bill deals with a small part of this, but not what needs to be done. We need a broad, comprehensive bill.
Can I just say something on that?
Go ahead.
I'm telling you right now, if somebody tries in the Senate to do just a banking bill, they're going to make all the wealth and the money that is going after this already is a multi-billion-dollar industry. But what could become a even bigger industry, to just do it so some people can get rich and not do something about the people who are languishing with criminal convictions, not do something on restorative justice, not do something to make sure that the business opportunities are created are fairly given a fair playing field, where right now in many states, someone who has a criminal conviction for selling marijuana can't get a license now. I don't know about other members of the Senate, but I will lay myself down to do everything I can to stop an easy banking bill that's going to allow all these corporations to make a lot more money off of this, as opposed to focusing on the restorative justice aspects.
Live. I'm Jimmy Young with Pro Cannabis Media, and I'm always joined by my pal, David Rabinovitz. Say hi, David.
Hi, David.
There you go. Very good. He's very good at that. And I can turn to another friend who's in our panel of distinguished people from New Hampshire. He's a representative up there. He's a good friend. His name is Tim Egan. Tim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Jimmy, it's a pleasure to join you today. I hope you can hear me okay. Just making sure I sound okay.
You sound fine, Tim. And New Hampshire is one of the few states in New England that doesn't have an adult use legalization platform open. You guys are in the trenches of politics in your state of New Hampshire. Tim, introduce this the field, the guys that you have in the panel in our Zoom call today. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jimmy. Yeah, I am actually a member of the House of Representatives representing Sugar Hill and the 5 towns around there. My colleague across the aisle, Ross Berry, represents Manchester area, and Daryl Eames is the head of the New Hampshire Cannabis Trade Association. And we've been trying to put our heads together to try and look at how do we get industry left, right, and center all to come together to talk about how we get off that list of one of the only 2 states in New England, because we understand that it's got a variety of values to our state.
Absolutely. And Ross, I think Tim referred to you as a friend from the other side of the aisle. You know how we are right now with our political agenda in Washington, D.C., with that division between Republicans and Democrats. And I just wonder, why New Hampshire? Why are you guys actually talking to each other as opposed to saying, well, whatever you say, I'm going to say the opposite?
Well, that speaks to the New Hampshire form of government. We have 400 state representatives. So we have one of the largest elected body outside of Congress, and I think like some parliament somewhere. But because of that, state representatives, we're closest to the people. So we get paid $100 a year. We're volunteers. There's no limelight, there's no glory in this. But when you look at the issue of legalization of cannabis in New Hampshire, it traditionally has not been a partisan issue, at least in the last 6 years since I've been watching it. It's traditionally been a House versus Senate versus governor debate. And the House has passed it before with the supermajority from both parties. So, you get people on both sides of the aisle who oppose it, but they're in a very small minority right now. And the overwhelming majority of us want to legalize it. The question is how and what is the path forward to get that done?
And Daryl, as a gentleman who represents industry, what is your role as far as this goes, as far as making it work for a new industry in New Hampshire, if and when we ever get to the point where you have a adult use legalization program?
Right. Well, I think one of the most important things to remember is that, at some point, all of these states are going to be in the situation where you've got cross-state competition. And so the association really is about making sure that when the day comes that we get adult rec, that we're building strong companies with strong brands. They're going to be able to withstand that level of competition. And so, we're all about supporting, connecting, educating, and organizing the industry. And we're here to be an asset for the legislators that are really pushing for legalization in the state.
Tim, walk us through the progress. Where are you guys at with this charge?
Well, we're making a lot of progress. First of all, the idea that my minority leader, Rennie Cushing, said to me, I want you to move this legislation forward. You understand the industry. He actually spoke at an event. Actually, Jimmy, I think you've met him at a Cannabis Certification Council event a couple of years back when we actually had physical events.
On the cannabis beat. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. And he said to me, you understand it from a social justice area, you understand it from a business area, you understand it from a governance area. And then I had the pleasure in working through some really good pieces of legislation that bipartisan we passed in the House to get to know Ross Berry and say, you know what, we're coming at this from the same place. We don't want big corporations taking things over. We want to allow people their rights to be able to grow, to start small businesses, to be able to offer a product that is being offered in, 4 of the 6 other New England states. So how can we work together? So that started earlier this term. I know there's been some other legislation that's been filed in the past from Democrats and Republicans equally. So that's happened in the past year or two. So we're now trying to see what really boils down to what can we get passed. As I think Ross referenced, the idea has been the Senate, which maybe skews a little older than the House, has been hesitant. And unfortunately, the governor has been quite hesitant. And I think knowing that industry and Republicans see something the same as Democrats, it may open his eyes in the next coming year. So the plan is to literally start talking about what can we get passed and take a look at that. And that's sort of why I wanted these 2 gentlemen to be part of this call, because they're part of an essential ground foundation of people that care about this industry, understand this industry, and want to move it forward for our residents of New Hampshire.
Ross, as you know, the senators, the U.S. Senate just introduced a pretty comprehensive bill that they'd like to see passed. I don't think any of us in this room think that you'll see this bill passed in its current state. I think we can go out on a limb there and say that. That being said, when you are in the trenches and you're talking to opposition, how do you guys find common ground? Is it social justice? Is that what's driving this more than anything else?
Well, I mean that could be for Tim's side. For my side, it's a freedom issue. Everyone's an adult and they get to make decisions to what they want to do. And I think that's a big one. I'll give you an example where I actually thought we weren't going to have common ground in New Hampshire. I said initially, a big thing for me is there's a push to put the cannabis in New Hampshire state-run liquor stores, and that's a non-starter for me. And I was actually surprised that Tim's side agreed on that. We probably come at it from a little different perspectives. For me, it was I didn't want to create just all these new government employees because I am a Republican, I am a conservative, I do believe in limited government. And Tim came at it from a social justice point of view. And it turns out we had another thing in common, which I told Tim. I wanted to limit the number of licenses an individual could hold, not the number of licenses, but a number of licenses that an individual could hold to stop, Pot Inc. or a large corporation coming in and monopolizing the industry right off the bat because they have easy access to capital. And one of the things we found an overlap on is, we both wanted to create a new generation of business owners. And I view this as a really easy way to level the playing field, especially if I'm 31 years old, I'm a millennial. I view this as a really easy way to level the playing field on the retail side by having a low barrier to entry regulated industry, brand new, that older Americans by and large won't participate in.
And Jimmy, let me just jump in. As a Democrat, I'm a blue dog Democrat. I'm a business guy. You've known me for 30 years, and I've run production companies. I've run films projects. I'm an economics guy. So I see that if you have small businesses and you have small shops and you have small grow facilities, then you're able to create an industry around the state. And when I met Daryl and I started talking like that, I think he was like pleasantly surprised, right, Daryl?
Absolutely.
So besides the tax advantages for municipalities, Daryl, how do you sell this into your community?
Well, it's very easy. I mean, the people don't realize that this industry touches almost everything from, manufacturing and agriculture to warehousing and distribution to seeds and science and laboratories and you name it. And, this is an opportunity, I think, to take a new industry and really be able to have certain communities benefit that may have, less economic opportunity currently. There are buildings sitting empty that could be utilized for these businesses. There are jobs that could be created. It's so much more than just the tax implications. And quite frankly, whether you're talking about the business side of it or the medical benefits of it, each of those could be a 4-hour podcast. But, the economic opportunity here and the ability to really spread that throughout the state of New Hampshire, I think is something that's incredibly attractive. And I think both sides of the aisle and the political class agree, really.
Well, I like the fact that you guys seem to actually understand that you're all on the same state team. I'm not sure our federal elected officials feel that same way because of how bipartisan everybody is. I mean, we're not going to evolve as a humanity or even as a country unless we figure out a way to actually communicate to each other and find common ground. Call me an idealist, call me whatever names you want. I think that's half the problem with our world right now is that every single word you use, you have an image of it.
Right.
And
well, I think
that way, hang on a second. I got one more point to make because I made a blog about that. But if I say the word American, what does that look like?
all of us on this podcast.
Good.
And that's the point that I was going to drive down. I apologize for interrupting you. You know, Daryl and Ross and I'm not going to, pat myself too hard on the back, but we're smart guys. And we see that we want the best for New Hampshire. And when I begin to see people leave New Hampshire and spend their money in Maine, Mass, and soon Vermont in stores, we're losing revenue. When I see people start to make traveling decisions going, hey, I'm going to come from somewhere else in the state where cannabis isn't legal, and I'm going to choose to go hiking, snowboarding, skiing, whatever. And that's maybe part of my culture. I enjoy cannabis versus alcohol or cigarettes. Can I, I'm going to go to upstate New York. I'm going to go to Vermont. I'm going to go to Maine. I'm going to go to Western Mass. I'm worried about it as a tourism issue. And if tourism is a $6 billion industry here, the number 2 revenue generator in the state of New Hampshire, why are we ignoring this? And so what it's going to take are smart, somewhat maybe not polite people like us who are going to be a little loud. What's that phrase in America? The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Well, it's time for a collective of folks that are representing all of it to be a little squeaky. And I think to Daryl's point about, the economics, and I'd love to hear Ross's point, because we haven't really gotten into this side of the conversation. I live in the North Country. There's nothing up here. We get maybe a little bit of manufacturing, we get logging. If you're looking at the North Country, New Hampshire, Coos and Grafton County, and they're predominantly banking on tourism. Well, if you can add cannabis as part of that tourism, I'm going to go, how many people have gone to a brewery tour? How many people have gone to, a brewery with a big patio? Why can't you have that in the cannabis industry in the North Country of New Hampshire, or down at the beaches area, or down in the southern, southwestern part of the state, in the Keene area? I mean, that's where I see the economic potential for our state. And the last point before I'll hog all the air is it's an economic issue. Right. This is a revenue generating issue. And if we're going to create small businesses, small entrepreneurs, and drive people to certain parts of the state that haven't been getting the love and attention, that's our job in the House from an economics point of view. When I think about legislatively things that tie to economic development, this is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
He is pretty smart for a guy who's won. How many Emmys, Tim? How many Emmys?
I got 2. I'm proud. 2 Emmys. Yeah, my friend Jimmy has a couple too.
Actually, I've got more nominations than I have trophies, but that's
You're the
okay.
Susan Lucci of nominations.
That's right. I don't have a problem with that. Okay, I do not have a problem with that. 8 times nominated, whatever. I'm very happy with that. I think it's because the category says produces Emmy nominated, Emmy award worthy, Emmy award worthy of an Emmy award is what I'm doing. So anyway. And by the way, you guys know, while we know that there was history in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday and all this, as far as we know, this is the only live streamed talk show on cannabis business that we've been able to find in this country. We do it every Friday from 4 to 6. And the guy to my quadrant there, my sidekick, David, does a great job when you ask him anything about history of cannabis or business. So I'm filling here because he knows I'm going to come to him now with a question that I'd like to see if he could pick something that he may have heard from New Hampshire and come up with a question for you guys. David?
Oh, I've got a great one. So this one's for Daryl. Daryl, Robbie's up watching us, and he's in our YouTube feed. And he'd like to know, how is the association organizing businesses in New Hampshire, and how can one get involved?
Absolutely. So we kicked off this year with hosting some networking group, which is a little bit different than the normal ones that I've run, but it's definitely a mix, I think, of both proponents and people operating in the industry. You might be surprised to know this, but just because we don't have adult recreation does not mean that we have entrepreneurs and businesses that are operating within the industry in the United States. We've got accountants, we've got labs, we've got finance companies like the one that I run. And so every month we're doing networking meetings. We started in the Manchester, New Hampshire area. We now have one in the North Country in Littleton, and we will soon be launching one in Nashua with eyes towards Portsmouth and points west as well. So if you go to New Hampshire Can with 2Ns.org and you go into the blog news or events, you'll be able to see when those are going to be scheduled. We're also on Facebook and some other social media, but the website's the best place. And then you can contact us to get information on the chapter that you want to join and the meeting locations and times.
There you go. Good. Anybody else in that chat room, David, you want to throw in here?
A lot of people in that chat room, including one of our 5 o'clock guests, but
good.
No other questions so far.
And if we could, I want to throw out a question to the chat room. Okay. If you had to pick one thing to change in the United States policy when it comes to cannabis illegalization, what is the one thing you'd like to see? What's the most important thing for you to see in federal legalization? And now I'm going to come back to Tim and say, Tim, at the state level, is it just go ahead?
It's the perfect question, because this is what brought Ross and I together. So I'm going to let him answer it.
All right, go ahead, Ross.
I mean, for me, the most important thing is going to be the tax revenue side of it, and what that looks like. And I imagine we'll have some disagreement over exactly how that looks like. And I want to give a quick little background on the reason for that. New Hampshire is a notoriously low tax state. And we are the lowest tax state in New England, and we're very proud of that. We have no sales tax, we have no income tax. And we have a very, very low tax on comparable goods. So alcohol and tobacco, which by the way, are way worse for you than cannabis, just as an aside. We have one of the lowest alcohol and tobacco tax rates in the region and in the country. And people come from all over the region to buy our alcohol. And we actually have limits on cartons of cigarettes, so how many you're allowed to buy, because some people come here to buy them. I would like to see that for New Hampshire, where instead of Massachusetts eating our lunch like they are right now, where all of our users are going down there, all of our citizens are going down there and buying it from them. I want to see the New Hampshire people buying it from New Hampshire, the Massachusetts people buying from New Hampshire, Vermont buying from New Hampshire, Maine buying from New Hampshire, because we have the cheapest product and the best product, just as an aside, but the cheapest.
Most efficient and economic product. All right, well, that's a good goal. I will say this about your state-run liquor stores. Costco's better. That being said,
it is.
For my own bottle of wine, I went and I looked for a very special bottle of wine, and we know the price at Costco, and we went to the liquor store last week. How does the state liquor store work, and is there a model there that can be applied to the cannabis industry? Who wants to handle that?
I can do it if you want, Tim.
Please.
I don't want to see that model applied for a variety of reasons. One of which is those employees are state employees, but there's people that work in those liquor stores who are not comfortable dealing with cannabis. So I wouldn't want to put something on them that they didn't sign up for. I don't think that's right. I think if we're going to look at a model that we should be for how to roll this out in New Hampshire, I think the way that the state rolled out Keno actually worked out really well. And Tim can kind of touch on this, but basically we introduced this kind of low-level form of gambling, but we let communities opt in, and that helped pass it. And I think we'll have to look at something like that where it says, all right, not every community is going to want this, and we are a local control state. But certain communities, I'm sure Manchester will pass it in 5 seconds. I have no doubt that it'll go into Keene. But I think we're going to have to do something like that to kind of grease the wheel to make sure we have the numbers in the House.
Yeah, and I think another interesting part is when he talked about the comfort level. Liquor has been around forever, so people sort of understand what kind of liquor they want when they go into a liquor store. Cannabis is a specialty item that needs to have professionals offer it to you. And I think, but if you've been into cannabis stores, and I have in Colorado and California and Maine and Massachusetts, that you want someone that knows. It's like you don't go to a auto repair shop for a guy that fixes bicycles. So you want to have somebody's specialty. And I think that's why the model of state run doesn't work. As well, I think I'm sort of an entrepreneur. So I think state run anything hurts entrepreneurism. And that's another part of it. And then that ties back into what Ross was talking about. That allows for communities to say, you know what, we want that in our region, because like up here in the North Country, there's a famous concert called Jerry Jam. Just by saying that, you understand the culture of my community. So Northern Grafton County, Lower Cost County is going to have towns that are, people are comfortable with adult use and will want to have stores, and that's an important part. So mixing those two things together says, let's figure out how we pass something that allows small businesses to grow, allows adult users to have it, maybe grow a couple of plants if they want, similar to Vermont or Maine's early model of 6 plants. But then, we're sort of in this, I don't want to say baby steps, but I think it's time for the baby to stop crawling and start walking. And that's why the three of us wanted to talk with you, because we're trying to figure out how to put our heads together to get those steps.
Well, it's a perfect storm right now. You've got federal legalization being filed at the U.S. Senate for the first time. You've got people coming out of a pandemic and they've been shut down, and they've seen that now cannabis has become an essential item in a lot of the other states. You're surrounded by friendly cannabis states. It seems like there's now a perfect storm and opportunity here. The question I'm going to ask you guys has to do with, and of course, you're not doing this for the money. That's for sure, Russ. $100. I get that. You take that right out of the equation. Okay. So getting reelected, is that high? In other words, what I'm seeing in Washington, D.C. is they're more concerned about keeping their seat, getting reelected, than listening to their constituency to get things done. That's what bothers me. I don't hear that coming from you guys.
Well, to touch on that, legalization of cannabis is extraordinarily popular in New Hampshire. I was actually looking at the polling earlier today. I can rattle off some numbers because I'm a polls guy here. But 87% of Democrats approve of sale and tax of marijuana at licensed retail outlets. 83% of independents. 67 are over 2 out of 3 of Republicans. 78% overall. So in terms of getting reelected, this is actually kind of one of the best things you can do if you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, or you're an independent. This is like the path. The people have spoken, and it's time to do what they want.
Yeah, I saw a poll last year that had cannabis with a better approval rating than Governor Sununu and Senator Shaheen and Senator Hassan. So what's next? It's time for us to do work. And when you were able to do that, that's when you're able to do that kind of work and provide for legislation that helps people, then they go, hey, that's the kind of guy I want to reelect, or that's the kind of gal I want to reelect.
I'd say when
you guys, I'm sorry, go ahead, Daryl.
I was just going to say, when 75% of your electorate is for legalization of adult use, I think maybe it's time for the political class to take notice.
Yeah, either that, or it's time for that 75% to begin to vote out of office the folks who are blocking it. Maybe what New Hampshire should do, and Ross, I know this is not going to be good for you, but why don't you guys come down to Massachusetts? We'll hook you up with some growers. You make a 5-foot-long joint, put a couple of arms on it, and see if you can run that thing for governor.
State police might have something to say about that. But
one last question for you guys, because I heard the name Shaheen, and it didn't come from this conversation, even though I heard it here. It came from Michael Correa, the lead lobbyist for the NCIA, who is concerned about her. Given the overwhelming polling now that you've just reported, how in the world can she have any vote any other way on this? Guys, I bet you feel the same way.
Well,
I'll let Tim go on that one.
Yeah, well, federally, candidly, Jimmy, I'm not focused on federally. You know, if I had my wishes, I'd like it to be descheduled, and then it allows states' rights and it allows states to create an economy. I think we're a long way off from national legalization, right? But so it's not a federal issue. I think if our senators and our Congress folks and even our governor want to be reelected, they're going to have to listen to that 75% electorate and say, you know what, I'm going to have to let things happen in a state that happen in a state being created by legislation by legislators who manage the state. That's Ross and I and, Speaker Sherm Packard and Minority Leader Rennie Cushing and folks that actually take time to put their divides aside and go, wait, where are common ground that we can work together? And that's what good politicians do. Bad politicians bark their talking points. Good politicians go, I don't know, do I agree with everything with Ross? No. But there are things that we do, and let's sit down and let's work on those. And that's why it's refreshing to sort of, be part of this conversation.
Right. And I got to tell you, it's refreshing. It makes me feel good about that too, Tim. It's why I encouraged you guys to get a little panel together so we could talk about it. I was so impressed with the fact that you were acting like Americans and looking for common ground that you can all agree on and live with. So I hope that perhaps our federal government can take examples of what's going on in New Hampshire. I appreciate that.
So, Jimmy, you want to hear the poll of the audience that you asked me to take?
Yeah, go ahead. Then we got to take our break, say goodbye to this panel, bring in another one. Go ahead.
So, number one, they'd like to see it descheduled. Number two, they'd like to see some sort of social justice and a way for people who've had past crimes to be able to participate in the industry. There's a concern that if you're in West Chesterfield and they say you can't grow and somebody in Keene can, how fair is that? So I think there's that sounds to me like whether you're going to give absolute local control as many of the states have done, or you're going to begin to limit some of that. And taxation. There's some concerns about if the taxes are too high, it's just not going to work.
Well, that's why everybody loves New Hampshire, because there's no tax for the most part.
But remember, they didn't have enough tax, and look what happened. They couldn't afford the glue, and the old man on the mountain fell down.
Hey, you leave my old man.
Whoa. That's a low blow, David.
Alone. Too soon.
I liked it. Now you go up there and you look up on the mountain, you go, now where was that?
Very sad.
Needed some hempcrete to put it all together so it holds together better than concrete. Okay. Tim Egan, I so appreciate your friendship and the fact that you're willing to come on here on a somewhat regular basis. I love that. Daryl Eames and Ross Berry, we thank you so much for taking some time out of your Friday afternoon to join us. And we will have a whole new panel, and we're going to be talking about the federal bill with the National Association of Cannabis Businesses and others, including our friend Stephen Mandilli, coming up in the next half hour. So don't go away. Thank you to our friends from New Hampshire. The Green Rush Live continues after this.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Young from Pro Cannabis Media. And when I started Pro Cannabis Media 2 years ago, I wanted to make sure the cannabis industry had a professional outlet to share their stories in their own words. Now, since it all started with my podcast In the Weeds 3 years ago, I've done over 250 interviews. I've met some incredible people with a shared passion for this amazing plant. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard the line, cannabis has saved my life, cannabis has changed my life. Well, now it's your turn. We want to give you a chance to tell your own story. It doesn't even need to be related to the medicinal power of this incredible plant. Just to give you a little incentive, we will pick 5 stories to share on our live Green Rush show on Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern. If we share your story, you automatically get one of our t-shirts with that closing line I use all the time, it's a whole new world of weed. But as the legendary Billy Mays used to say, that's not all. One of those finalists will win one of these really cool full-story cannabis storage units. It's a great way to store your cannabis in their food-grade aluminum containers. It's award-winning, child-proof, smell-proof, and has a solid contemporary design. It's a $220 value, but you can win one if we pick your story and feature it on our show. Yes, we will pick one of those 5 finalists, and they will receive this $220 value absolutely free. Now, we ask you to keep your story to under 90 seconds on video and less than 500 words in text. So Come out of the cannabis closet and tell us your story, and you could win with yourstory.com. Just go on to procannabismedia.com and sign up today. You might even join us on one of our shows.
A banking bill deals with a small part of this, but not what needs to be done. We need a broad, comprehensive bill.
Can I just say something on that?
Go ahead.
I'm telling you right now, if somebody tries in the Senate to do just a banking bill, they're going to make all the wealth and the money that is going after this already is a multi-billion-dollar industry. But what could become a even bigger industry, to just do it so some people can get rich and not do something about the people who are languishing with criminal convictions, not do something on restorative justice, not do something to make sure that the business opportunities are created are fairly given a fair playing field, where right now in many states, someone who has a criminal conviction for selling marijuana can't get a license now. I don't know about other members of the Senate, but I will lay myself down to do everything I can to stop an easy banking bill that's going to allow all these corporations to make a lot more money off of this, as opposed to focusing on the restorative justice aspects.